I'm Octavio, I'm 27, and for half of my life, I've been the one raising my 5 younger siblings. My mom was always chasing relationships, and when she announced that baby number 7 was on the way, something inside me finally broke. I decided that it was time for me to live my own life, so I moved out. I never expected that she would call the police on me, or that my escape would cause such complete chaos. Before I share how this all went down, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, what happened next ended up changing everything about our family dynamic. Growing up in our modest 3-bedroom house in suburban Phoenix, Arizona, was always chaotic but manageable, that is, until my dad walked out when I was just 11. Mom had to start working multiple jobs, waitressing during the day and cleaning offices at night, all just to keep food on the table and the lights on. Being the oldest of 6 kids, I naturally stepped in to help. But what began as occasional babysitting quickly evolved into a full-time parenting role. My siblings, James, 17, Kyle, 15, Chloe, 13, the twins, Max and Jackson, 10, and little Lucy, 7, are good kids, but they need constant attention, guidance, and care. By the time I had turned 12, I was making most of the family meals, helping everyone with their homework, and making sure the house didn't completely fall apart. Once I got my driver's license at 16, my responsibilities grew even more. I became the family chauffeur, driving kids to school, doctor appointments, sports practices, and playdates. I learned how to balance the household budget, pay bills on time, and stretch mom's paychecks until the next one arrived. When my siblings fought, which was constantly, I was the mediator and the peacemaker. Octavio, can you help me with my science project? Octavio, Max took my game. Octavio, when's dinner ready? My name became synonymous with solving every problem in our house. A typical morning for me in our household started at 5:30 a.m. I'd wake up first to prepare breakfast for everyone, pack 6 different lunches while accounting for all the various preferences and allergies, and then begin the impossible task of getting everyone ready for school. Lucy always lost a shoe. The twins inevitably fought over bathroom time. Chloe needed last-minute help with homework she'd forgotten. Kyle perpetually overslept. And James, though helpful when he wanted to be, was deep in his teenage rebellion. James, please just help the twins find their backpacks while I get Lucy's hair done, I'd plead, all while simultaneously flipping pancakes and signing a permission slip Chloe had sprung on me. Why is it always my job, he'd grumble, though he usually helped anyway. By the time everyone was out the door and I'd dropped the younger ones at their schools, I was already completely exhausted, and my day was just beginning. I'd head to my part-time job at a local bookstore, where the manager was understanding about my family situation and let me work flexible hours. After work, I'd rush to pick everyone up, supervise homework, referee fights, make dinner, oversee baths for the younger kids, and try to maintain some semblance of order until bedtime. Somewhere in between, I attempted to take online college classes, usually studying late into the night after everyone was finally asleep. My dreams of becoming an architectural engineer seemed to get more and more distant with each passing year. Mom wasn't a bad parent when she was actually around. She loved all of us fiercely and worked incredibly hard to provide financially, but she was physically absent because of work and emotionally distant as she cycled through a series of boyfriends who never stuck around for long. She'd come home exhausted, grateful for my help, and increasingly dependent on it. I don't know what I'd do without you, Octavio, she'd say, kissing the top of my head like I was still a child instead of the one actually keeping her household running. You're such a good son. And I was. I loved my siblings deeply. When Lucy lost her first tooth and looked up at me with that gap-toothed smile, my heart completely melted. When the twins worked together to make me a birthday card, I displayed it proudly. When Chloe came to me first about her girl problems instead of mom, I felt trusted. When Kyle finally improved his grades after hours of my tutoring, I felt so proud. When James confided in me about his future dreams, I felt connected. But underneath all of that love was a growing resentment that I tried hard to ignore. I watched my high school friends go off to college while I stayed behind. I saw them posting about dorm life and spring break trips while I was potty training Lucy and teaching the twins how to read. I heard about their new apartments and promotions while I was still living at home, sharing a bedroom with James, with no privacy and very little freedom. I wasn't living my life. I was living this strange hybrid existence as a brother-father, with all of the responsibility and none of the authority. And as much as I tried to suppress it, the truth was becoming unavoidable. I was drowning, and no one seemed to notice or even care. The night everything changed started like any other family dinner. I had made lasagna, the one meal everyone would eat without complaint, and managed to get all 6 kids seated at our scratched-up dining table at the same time, a minor miracle in itself. Mom had texted that she was bringing Greg, her boyfriend of 8 months, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the excited tone of her message and her insistence that everyone be present. Greg was her longest relationship since Dad left, a 43-year-old construction worker with a booming laugh and a tendency to bring candy for the kids. He seemed nice enough, but I'd learned not to get attached to the men in Mom's life. They inevitably disappeared, leaving her heartbroken and the kids confused. When Mom and Greg arrived, they were both grinning widely. Greg's arm was around Mom's waist in a protective gesture I hadn't seen before. "Everyone, we have some exciting news," Mom announced after barely touching her food. Her eyes were bright with happiness as she looked around the table. "Greg and I are having a baby. You're all going to have a new little brother or sister." The table immediately erupted in various reactions. Lucy bounced in her seat, clapping her hands. "A baby? Can I help take care of it? Can it sleep in my room?" The twins high-fived each other. "We won't be the youngest boys anymore," Max exclaimed. Chloe's reaction was more measured. At 13, she understood more about what this meant. "Wow, Mom, that's big news. When is it due?" Kyle rolled his eyes dramatically. "Great. Another screaming kid in the house. Just what we need." James shot me a quick, concerned glance before offering a polite, "Congratulations," that sounded hollow even to my ears. And me? I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My smile was frozen on my face as I struggled to process what this meant. Another child. Another responsibility. Another person who would need care, attention, time, and resources we already didn't have enough of. "Octavio, aren't you going to say anything?" Mom prompted, her smile faltering slightly. I forced enthusiasm into my voice. "That's wonderful news, Mom. Congratulations to both of you." Greg beamed, apparently oblivious to the undercurrents at the table. "We're thinking it might be a girl, but it's too early to know for sure. Either way, it'll be nice to have a little one around again." A little one around again. As if we didn't already have a 7-year-old. As if our house wasn't already bursting at the seams. As if I hadn't just started to see light at the end of the tunnel as Lucy became more independent. The rest of dinner was a blur of pregnancy talk and future plans. Mom was due in 7 months. They weren't going to find out the gender ahead of time. Greg was thinking of converting part of the garage into another bedroom since there was literally no space left in the actual house. I nodded and smiled in all the right places while my mind raced. Greg had only been around for 8 months. He still lived in his own apartment across town. He worked long hours and weekend shifts. In my experience, when the baby came, guess who would be handling the 2 a.m. feedings and diaper changes? Not Greg. Not Mom, who would be back at work as soon as possible. Me. Always me. After dinner, when the kids were occupied with homework and television, I found Mom alone in the kitchen. "Mom, can we talk about this?" I asked quietly. "About the baby? Isn't it wonderful, Octavio?" she said. "I know it's unexpected, but Greg is different. He's really committed. I took a deep breath. That's great, but I'm concerned about the practical aspects. The house is already crowded. Finances are tight. And honestly, Mom, I'm worried about who's going to be taking care of this baby. Her face hardened slightly. What do you mean? Greg and I will, of course. Will you, though? Greg works construction 12-hour days. You work 2 jobs. Who's going to be doing the midnight feedings, the doctor appointments, the daily care? We'll figure it out like we always do, she said dismissively. Maybe I can cut back hours. Greg might switch to a different crew with more regular hours. And of course, she said, we have you. There it was. The assumption that had defined my entire life for the past 15 years. Mom, I'm 27. I've put my life on hold to help raise the others, and I've never complained. But I can't do it anymore. Not with another baby. She looked genuinely surprised. What are you talking about? This is your family, Octavio. We need you. I need me, too, Mom. I need to finish my degree. I need to start my career. I need my own life. You're being selfish, she said, the words cutting deep. I love this baby, and they'll be my brother or sister, just like I love the others, but I won't be their primary caregiver. I can't be. She shook her head like I was speaking a language she couldn't understand. We'll talk about this later. You're just shocked by the news. That night, I lay awake in the bedroom I shared with James, listening to his steady breathing from the other bed. My mind wouldn't stop racing. 7 more years minimum before that child would be somewhat independent. I'd be 34. My youth and all my opportunities were slipping away, one diaper change at a time. The next morning, I pulled James aside before school. What do you think about Mom's news? I asked him. He shrugged, trying to look nonchalant, but I could see the worry in his eyes. It's her life, I guess, but it's going to be crazy around here with a baby. James, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about moving out. His eyes widened. For real? Where would you go? I'd get an apartment somewhere close by. I'd still help out, but I need to focus on finishing school and starting my career. He was quiet for a moment. I get it. I do. But what about the rest of us? You're 17, almost an adult yourself. Kyle's 15. Chloe's becoming more independent every day. The twins and Lucy still need a lot, but between Mom, Greg, and all of you older kids, you can manage. You really think Mom can handle it? He asked. Or that Greg will stick around once the baby comes and things get hard? I didn't have a good answer for that. But for the first time in my life, I realized I needed to prioritize myself, even if that meant the family I loved might struggle without me. That day, I started researching apartments in earnest. I looked at my savings account. It was meager, but enough for a deposit if I was careful. I considered how many more hours I could pick up at work if I wasn't rushing home every day to care for my siblings. I thought about enrolling full-time in the community college's architectural program instead of taking 1 or 2 online classes per semester. For the first time in 15 years, I allowed myself to imagine a life that was truly my own. Over the next 2 weeks, I operated like a secret agent in my own home. I found an affordable 1-bedroom apartment just 3 miles away, close enough to still visit regularly, but far enough to have my own space. It was within walking distance of the community college, where I could finally take in-person classes to finish my degree. The rent would be tight on my bookstore salary, but I'd already spoken to my manager about increasing my hours, and she'd enthusiastically agreed. Honestly, Octavio, she told me, I've been wanting to offer you a full-time position with benefits for ages. You're my most reliable employee. I just knew your family situation made that difficult. I put down a deposit and signed a lease with a start date 1 month out. That gave me time to prepare everyone for the change and transition some of my responsibilities. I started with James, teaching him the basics of household management that I'd learned through years of trial and error. Always do a quick inventory of the fridge before grocery shopping, I explained as we walked through the supermarket, and keep a running list on the fridge where everyone can add items they notice are running low. This is a lot, James said, looking overwhelmed as I showed him my system for tracking bills and the budget. You don't have to take all of this on, I assured him. Just knowing where things are and how they work will help. Mom should be handling the finances anyway, I just stepped in because she was so overwhelmed. Next, I spoke with my academic advisor at the community college about transitioning to full-time status. She helped me create a schedule that would allow me to work mornings at the bookstore and take classes in the afternoon and evening. You could finish your associate's degree within a year at this pace, she said, smiling at my obvious excitement. And then transfer to the university for your bachelor's in architectural engineering. That night, I sat in my car outside our house for a long time, looking at the course catalog and imagining myself in those classes, working on designs, building models, pursuing the dream I'd deferred for so long. My chest felt tight with a mixture of hope and guilt. Inside the house was chaos as usual. Lucy had spilled juice on her homework. The twins were arguing over whose turn it was on the video game. Chloe was locked in the bathroom talking to a friend on the phone. Kyle had his music turned up too loud, and James was trying unsuccessfully to get everyone to settle down for dinner. Mom wasn't home yet. Greg was coming over later. It was the perfect storm of normal family madness, and for once, I just observed it instead of immediately jumping in to fix everything. James caught my eye, looking completely frazzled. A little help here? I nodded and stepped in, turning down Kyle's music, separating the twins with the promise of game time after dinner, helping Lucy salvage her homework, and gently knocking on the bathroom door to tell Chloe dinner was ready. Order restored, I served the spaghetti I'd prepared earlier and watched my siblings eat, bicker, laugh, and exist in their beautiful, messy way. I loved them fiercely, but I also knew I couldn't continue being their surrogate parent. Mom arrived just as we were finishing dinner, looking tired but happy. Sorry I'm late. Had a doctor's appointment for the baby. Everything okay? I asked. Perfect. Strong heartbeat. Greg's meeting me here in an hour. I took a deep breath. Mom, can we talk privately before he gets here? She looked surprised but nodded. Sure, honey. Let me just change first. 20 minutes later, we sat at the kitchen table while the kids watched television in the living room. Mom, I need to tell you something important, I began, my heart pounding. I found an apartment, and I'm moving out next month. Her fork clattered against her plate. You're what? Moving out? I'm 27, Mom. It's time I lived my own life. But what about the family? What about the kids? What about the baby coming? The kids will be fine. James is almost an adult. Kyle and Chloe are becoming more independent. And you'll have Greg to help with the little ones and the baby. She shook her head in disbelief. You can't be serious. We need you here, Octavio. This family falls apart without you. That's not true, Mom. And even if it were, it's not fair to put that on me. I've been helping raise your children since I was 12 years old. I've put my education and career on hold. I've sacrificed my own opportunities and relationships. I love them all, but I need to live my own life now. Her expression hardened. So you're just abandoning your family when we need you most, with a new baby coming? I'm not abandoning anyone. I'll still be close by. I'll still visit and help when I can, but I won't be the primary caregiver anymore. That's your role, Mom, not mine. How can you be so selfish? After everything I've done for you? That struck a nerve. Selfish? Mom, I've been taking care of your children for 15 years. I've been a parent when I should have been a child myself. How is wanting my own life selfish? Because family comes first, Octavio. Family takes care of each other. Yes, they do. But there's a difference between helping out and sacrificing your entire future. I've done the latter for far too long. Our voices had risen, and I suddenly realized the television in the living room had gone silent. The kids were listening. Mom noticed too and lowered her voice to a harsh whisper. You can't do this to me. To us. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing something for me for once. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back, she said, the ultimatum hanging heavy in the air between us. I hadn't expected that, and it felt like a physical blow. You don't mean that. I mean every word. If you're not with this family 100%, then you're not part of it at all. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. That's not how family works, Mom. And if that's really how you feel, then maybe it's better that I leave sooner rather than later. I walked out of the kitchen to find all 5 siblings standing in the hallway, their faces showing various degrees of shock and distress. Lucy was crying silently, her small shoulders shaking. The twins looked confused and scared. Chloe was biting her lip hard. Kyle's face was stormy with anger. And James looked resigned, as if he'd been expecting this confrontation for years. You're really leaving? Lucy asked in a small voice. I knelt down to her level. I'm getting my own place, Lucy Goose. But I'll still see you all the time. Promise? She asked, her lower lip trembling. I promise. The atmosphere in the house that night was suffocating. Mom locked herself in her bedroom. When Greg arrived, I heard their muffled conversation through the door. Greg emerged looking troubled and left without speaking to me. The younger kids went to bed early, subdued and confused. Kyle slammed his door and blasted music until late. James and I sat in our shared bedroom in silence for a long time. I don't blame you, he finally said. I probably would have done the same. I'm sorry to put more responsibility on you, I replied. He shrugged. It was going to happen eventually. Better now than when I'm trying to go to college next year. The comment hit me like a bucket of cold water. James was right. If I didn't break this cycle now, he would face the same impossible choice I had, family or future. I'll help you get out, too, I promised him. When the time comes, you're not going to miss your chance like I almost did. He nodded, and for the first time that night, I felt certain I was making the right decision. After that night, my plan accelerated dramatically. The tension in the house was unbearable. Mom alternated between cold silence and tearful pleas for me to reconsider. Greg started coming around less, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama. The kids walked on eggshells, unsure how to act around either of us. I called my new landlord and asked if I could move in early. Fortunately, the apartment was vacant, and he agreed to let me take possession immediately if I paid the prorated rent. I used almost all my savings, but it was worth it to escape the toxic atmosphere at home. I decided to move out while Mom was at work to avoid another confrontation. James helped me load my few possessions into my car, clothes, books, my laptop, and the drafting table I'd saved up for 3 years to buy but rarely had time to use. The goodbyes with my siblings were the hardest part. James was stoic, already stepping into the role I was leaving behind. I'll call you if things get too crazy, he promised. And you'd better have me over for dinner at least once a week. Chloe was trying to be mature but couldn't quite hide her hurt. It feels like you're abandoning us, she said quietly. I'm not abandoning you, Chloe. I'm just living in a different place. You can call me anytime, and I'll still pick you up for our Saturday morning breakfasts. She nodded but didn't look convinced. The twins were confused and kept asking practical questions. Who's going to help us with math homework? Max wanted to know. James is great at math, I reminded him. And I'm just a phone call away if you get stuck. Who's going to make banana pancakes on Sundays? Jackson asked. I'll teach you guys how to make them yourselves, I promised. Chef Jackson has a nice ring to it, don't you think? That got a small smile from him. Lucy was the hardest. She clung to me, sobbing. Don't go, Tavi. Please don't go. I held her tight, my own eyes stinging with tears. I have to, Lucy Goose, but I'm not going far. And I'll see you very soon. I promise. But who's going to check for monsters under my bed? Who's going to braid my hair the way I like? Each question was like a knife to my heart. Mom will check for monsters, and I'll show Chloe exactly how to do your special braid. She sniffled against my shoulder. It won't be the same. No, I agreed softly. It won't be the same. But different doesn't mean bad. Sometimes different can be good, even when it's hard at first. Eventually, I had to peel her small arms from around my neck and hand her to James, who held her as she continued to cry. I got into my car before I could change my mind, tears blurring my vision as I drove away from the only home I'd ever known. My apartment was small, sparse, and quiet, so quiet it was almost unsettling after years of constant noise and chaos. I had a second-hand couch, a bed on the floor, my drafting table by the window, and not much else. But it was mine. All mine. That first night alone was surreal. No one interrupted my shower. No one needed help with homework. No one fought over the television remote. I could eat what I wanted, when I wanted. I could stay up late working on a design project without having to stop to put someone to bed or clean up a spill. The freedom was intoxicating, and terrifying, and lonely. I checked my phone constantly, but there was nothing from Mom. James texted a few updates. Lucy cried herself to sleep. Mom came home and freaked when she realized you were gone. Greg and Mom fighting about something. Kyle says he's glad you're gone but he's locked himself in the bathroom for an hour. I replied with advice and encouragement, feeling guilty but also relieved that I could help from a distance now. 3 days passed with no word from Mom. Then, on the 4th day, there was a pounding on my door that made me jump. I opened it to find Greg standing there, his face flushed with anger. You need to come home, he said without preamble. Your mother is falling apart. The kids are a mess. Nobody can find anything. Lucy won't stop crying for you. I stood my ground. I'm sorry things are difficult, Greg. But they'll adjust. And I'm not coming back to be the parent. That's your job and Mom's. His face darkened. Listen, kid. Your mom is pregnant. She's emotional and stressed. She needs support right now, not more problems. I'm not a kid. I'm 27 years old. And I've been supporting Mom and raising her children since I was 12. It's someone else's turn now. You selfish little, he started, then caught himself. There's going to be consequences for this, Octavio. Mark my words. He stormed off, and I closed the door, shaking slightly but more determined than ever. The next week was a strange adjustment period. I worked longer shifts at the bookstore, enrolled in 3 in-person classes for the upcoming semester, and slowly settled into my new space. I bought groceries just for me. I slept in on my day off. I spent an entire evening working on a design project without interruption. I also fielded constant texts from my siblings. James was handling things better than expected but was exhausted. Chloe had stepped up to help with Lucy. The twins were acting out at school. Kyle was barely speaking to anyone. And Mom had escalated from silence to accusatory texts. How could you abandon your family? Lucy cried for you again tonight. The twins failed their math test because you weren't here to help them study. I raised you better than this. Each message was designed to twist the knife of guilt, and they worked. I second-guessed my decision constantly. But whenever I considered going back, I remembered the feeling of drawing at my table without interruption, of planning my own day, of finally putting myself first after a lifetime of coming last. I wasn't going back. No matter what. A week and a half after I moved out, there was a knock on my door at 1:30 p.m. Thinking it might be James with some emergency, I rushed to answer it, only to find 2 police officers standing in the hallway. Octavio Ramirez, the older officer, asked. Yes, I replied, my heart racing. Is everything okay? Did something happen to my family? No, sir. We're conducting a welfare check. May we come in? Confused and increasingly worried, I stepped aside to let them enter. The officers, Torres and Rivera, according to their name tags, looked around my small apartment with professional interest. What's this about? I asked. Why would I need a welfare check? Officer Torres consulted his notepad. We received a call from Tina Ramirez, who identified herself as your mother. She expressed concern about your mental state and reported that you had taken money and items belonging to your younger siblings before leaving home abruptly. I stared at him in disbelief. That's completely false. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. And I'm perfectly fine mentally. I moved out of my mother's house because I'm 27 years old and it was time for me to live independently. Officer Rivera, who had been quietly observing until now, spoke up. Can you tell us a bit more about the situation? Your mother seemed quite distressed. Taking a deep breath, I explained the whole story, how I'd been helping raise my siblings since I was a child, how my mother was now pregnant with her 7th child, and how I'd finally decided I needed to live my own life. I love my family, I concluded. But I've sacrificed my education, career, and personal life to help raise my mother's children. I couldn't do it anymore, especially not with another baby coming. The officers exchanged a glance that I couldn't quite interpret. And the items your mother mentioned, Officer Torres asked. She specifically noted a gaming system belonging to your brothers and some cash from a household account. The gaming system is mine. I bought it with my own money from my job at the bookstore. I have the receipt somewhere if you need it. And I didn't take any household money. I used my own savings to rent this place. Officer Rivera nodded slowly. Do you have any idea why your mother would make these claims? She's upset that I moved out. She relied on me heavily to care for the other kids and run the household. She probably hoped you would convince me to come back or intimidate me somehow. Rivera's expression softened slightly. I understand family dynamics can be complicated. I grew up in a similar situation. Oldest of 5, lot of responsibility from a young age. Torres completed his notes and looked up. Well, we can see you're clearly fine, Mr. Ramirez. There's no evidence of any crime here, and as an adult, you're free to live where you choose. Will my mother know that you checked on me? I asked. We'll report back that we conducted the welfare check and found no cause for concern, Torres confirmed. But we don't share specific details. After the officers left, I sat on my couch in shock. My own mother had called the police on me with false accusations. It was a new low, even for our dysfunctional relationship. My phone rang almost immediately after the police left. It was Mom. How could you lie to the police? She demanded when I answered. You're the one who made false accusations. I was worried about you. You left without any warning, took things, disappeared. I didn't disappear, Mom. I moved 3 miles away. I told you I was moving. And I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. The boys' gaming system is mine. I bought it with my bookstore money 2 years ago. You know that. You're breaking this family apart, Octavio. The kids are suffering because of your selfishness. The accusation stung, but I held firm. The kids are adjusting to change, which is normal. And this family needed to change, Mom. It wasn't healthy for me to be a surrogate parent, and it wasn't healthy for you to depend on me instead of stepping up yourself. How dare you question my parenting, she shouted. I worked 3 jobs sometimes to keep a roof over your head. And I'm grateful for that. But working isn't the only part of parenting. Being present, being involved, not having baby after baby with men who don't stick around, that's part of parenting, too. There was a shocked silence on the other end of the line. I'd never spoken to her this way before, never challenged her choices so directly. I just wanted you to come home, she finally said, her voice smaller. I thought if the police talked to you, you thought they'd force me to come back. Or scare me into it. Mom, I'm an adult. I have every right to live on my own. We need you here. No, you want me here to keep taking care of your responsibilities. That's different from needing me. Fine, she snapped, her voice hardening again. Stay away then. See if I care. She hung up, and I sat in the darkness of my apartment, feeling both terrible and strangely liberated. The conversation had been painful but honest in a way we'd never been before. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Mom just got off the phone with you. She's crying in her room. What happened? I briefly explained about the police visit and our subsequent conversation. Wow, he replied. That's messed up. She really called the cops on you. Apparently she thought they'd convince me to come home. Are you okay? The simple question almost broke me. When was the last time anyone in my family had asked if I was okay? I'm fine, I texted back. How are things there? Chaotic. Mom's morning sickness is bad. Greg's around less. The kids miss you. I miss them too. How are you holding up? Tired. Don't know how you did this for so many years. That night, I got separate texts from Chloe and Kyle, both checking in secretively, as if afraid Mom would disapprove of them contacting me. Even the twins sent a joint message from Max's phone, we got a B on our math test. Not as good as when you help but still good. Only Lucy didn't reach out, and I wondered if she was too young to text independently or if she was still too hurt by my departure. The next day, James called with an update that made my stomach twist. Greg didn't come over last night like he was supposed to. Mom called him like 10 times. I think they're fighting. About what? Not sure, but I heard her yelling about commitment and responsibility on the phone. I think she's worried he's pulling away. I closed my eyes, leaning against my kitchen counter. If Greg left, Mom would be alone with 6 kids and a baby on the way. Part of me wanted to rush back and fix everything, take care of everyone like I always had. But another part, a stronger part now, recognized that wasn't my job and never should have been. Mom and Greg's relationship wasn't my responsibility. The family's well-being wasn't solely on my shoulders anymore. It was the hardest lesson I'd ever had to learn. I could love my family deeply and still not sacrifice my life for them. 3 weeks after moving out, I was finally finding my rhythm. I'd started my classes and was thriving in the structured academic environment. My instructors were impressed with my work, especially my architectural drafting skills. My manager at the bookstore had promoted me to assistant manager with a slight pay increase. My apartment was slowly becoming a home with second-hand furniture finds and a few plants brightening the space. I'd see my siblings twice, once when I took the younger ones to the park on a Saturday, and once when James and Kyle came over to watch a basketball game. Those visits were slightly awkward but also reassuring. The kids were adjusting. Life was continuing. Mom still wasn't speaking to me directly, though she'd stopped the accusatory texts. Greg was apparently still in the picture but spending less time at the house. Then came the call that changed everything. Octavio? James' voice was tight with panic. Mom's in the hospital. Something's wrong with the baby. I grabbed my keys before he even finished explaining. Which hospital? I'm on my way. Phoenix General. They took her by ambulance about an hour ago. Greg's on his way from work. I'm here with the kids. Lucy's really scared. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Hang tight. I broke several speed limits getting to the hospital, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Despite everything, Mom was still Mom. I loved her, and the thought of something happening to her or the baby was terrifying. The hospital waiting room was a scene of barely contained chaos. Lucy was curled in James' lap, crying quietly. The twins were unusually subdued, sitting close together on uncomfortable plastic chairs. Chloe was pacing nervously. Kyle was staring at his phone, but I could tell he wasn't really seeing it. Any updates? I asked as they all looked up in relief at my arrival. James shook his head. They're not telling us much because we're minors. Just that she's stable, but there are complications. I approached the nurse's station, explained I was Tina Ramirez's oldest son, and asked for information. The nurse checked something in her computer. The doctor will be out to speak with family shortly, she said with practiced neutrality. Your mother is currently undergoing some tests. As if on cue, Greg burst through the emergency room doors, still in his work clothes and covered in construction dust. His face was pale beneath his tan. What happened? Where is she? Is the baby okay? He demanded. Before I could answer, a doctor in scrubs approached. Family of Tina Ramirez? We all gathered around her, even Lucy wiping her tears to listen. I'm Dr. Bennett. Your mother is stable, and the baby is okay for now, but she's experiencing placental issues that are concerning at this stage of pregnancy. She's going to need complete bed rest for the remainder of her pregnancy, which means minimal physical activity. No work, no lifting, no household chores. Greg ran a hand through his hair. For how long? Until delivery. So approximately 4 more months. The implications hit us all at once. 4 months of Mom unable to work. 4 months of her unable to care for the 5 younger children still at home. 4 months of complete dependence on others. Can I see her? Greg asked. Yes, she's asking for you. And her son, Octavio. I was surprised she'd asked for me but followed Greg and the doctor to Mom's room. She looked small and vulnerable in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors, her hand resting protect.